In this video, we're going to be going over some of the key points from Chapter 1, talking about personal financial planning and some of the actions that go along with it. You can see the learning objectives. You can look those over. The whole idea behind this course is to help you with your personal financial planning. The whole idea behind it is to get a good idea as far as what are you doing with your money, how are you making it work for you, how are you making it so that it's most effective as far as what it is that you're doing for your life. All right. Now the advantages, increased effectiveness in getting it, using it, and protecting it. That's basically the process that we're going to be going over as far as the class is concerned. And one of the things it talks about here is improved personal relationships. For a lot of couples, for a lot of families, financial planning and finances are a real issue that they may be running into on some things. During the class, be thinking about the adult life cycle, some of your situational factors. In other words, are you married? Are you single? Do you have kids? Things like that. Are there any kind of major events that might be coming into play that can impact some of your financial planning? You'll see in the book that it has this big thing here and some of the things to think about from your age, your marital status, and this sort of thing. Some of the activities that you may want to think about depending upon where you are in your personal life. And also think about some of your personal values, because it's our values that are going to determine the key things that we do. Now, one of the things that, this is not an economics class. The thing is, the economy does impact the things that we do and the decisions that we make. If you think about it, here you are, you might have a job, okay? Your business will then pay you, all right? The business is going through and they're doing their business. They're producing their products. They're selling the things that their services and things like that. They go through various financial intermediaries, such as banks and things, and there's going to be financial markets that come into play. They then pay you. You become a user of those funds. You then become a provider of those funds. So you as an individual then are going to spend your money. You get your deposits into your bank account, all right? And some of your money may be going into a retirement account or something like that. And then you use those funds in purchasing products and services and things like that. It's an entire circle. So the economy does come into play when you start thinking about your financial planning. Also, there are global influences as far as the economy that can impact what it is that we're doing. Imports, exports impact the available supply of dollars, things like this. Now, you may hear about inflation. Inflation is where prices generally go up. So, for example, a gallon of milk. It may go up a few cents, maybe every few weeks or something along those lines, because the producers are having to pay a little bit more, maybe in gas, okay? Maybe the insurance that they have to pay. And then they're shipping that over to the stores. And the stores are having to pay maybe a little bit more as far as their labor costs or stocking the shelves and things like this. In other words, inflation is basically where there's a general rise in prices and things. One of the things you may hear about is the CPI, the Consumer Price Index. It's kind of a measure as far as what's happening with inflation. Another key thing to think about, and we'll talk about this more in the class, is what's called the Rule of 72. The Rule of 72 gives you an idea as far as how quickly something will double as far as prices or amount of money, things like that. So in this example here, if you have inflation running at 4%, okay, what will happen is you take the 72, divide it by 4, and it says that prices will double within 18 years. If you have a certain amount of savings, you put away some savings, and let's say you're getting 6% on that savings. 72 divided by 6 gives you 12. Your savings will double in 12 years if you're getting 6%. So one of the things to think about is what's called the Rule of 72. It gives you a nice round way of thinking about how quickly something might double as far as prices, as far as amount of money, things like that. Now, interest is basically the cost of money. Banks borrow money. We borrow money. things like that. And in order to borrow that, we have to pay for it. So it's the cost of money. With that, you have issues as far as supply and demand. The more demand there is for money, the higher the interest rate will be. Then you have the risk premium. In other words, the length of time that you're going to be using that money. That will increase the interest rates that are being paid. Uncertainty. In other words, can you pay it back? Things like this. We'll talk more about that as we go through the class. In the class, you can see the chapters and the things that we'll be talking about. First, we're going to talk about how do we get it. And then we'll talk about how are we going to save it. And then we're going to talk about, okay, so how are we going to spend that money? In other words, buying cars, houses, major appliances, things like that. Then we're going to talk about, so how do we protect that money? How do we manage some of the risk as far as the money and ourselves? And then talk about investment and retirement. So you can see what we're talking about here for the class is life. We're going through the entire cycle of life as far as what it is that we're doing with our money and our finances. One of the things to really think about is what kind of goals are you setting. You're going to have short, intermediate, and long-term goals. Short-term goal may be, okay, I want to save up for a vacation or something like that. Long-term goals may be something like, I'd like to make sure that I have the money that's necessary for retirement. Things like this. So one of the things to think about are what are the goals that you're setting as far as your finances and your life is concerned. When you start thinking about some of the financial needs, what is it that we're actually setting those goals for? So you're going to have budgets and things like that. You have consumable products. In other words, we need to eat. All right, we will use up things within our house. Then you have durable good products. In other words, you're going to buy a washer and dryer, things like this. And then there may be intangible products that you buy, such as I'm going to go on a vacation or something along those lines. Whenever you start setting your goals, make sure that they are smart, specific, consumable products. We have to go to the grocery store. And time-based. If you're not making sure that there's some sort of realism to it and also a time limit, it's nothing more than a wish list. Another term you're going to hear is what's called opportunity cost. Every time you purchase something, you are giving up the opportunity to buy something else. So you go to Charbucks and you buy that $5 cup of Charbucks, whatever it is. What are you trading off for that $5? So you'll always hear the idea of opportunity cost. If I spend my money over here, what am I giving up over there? You have your personal opportunity and then also the financial opportunity costs, okay, that go along with that. Review some of that in the book, in the text. Then a key thing is what's called the time value of money. Money has a value over time. And there's various ways to calculate that and to determine what that value of money is today and tomorrow. We use three things that go along with it. You have your principal, in other words, how much you're going to be putting aside or how much are you going to be spending. The interest rate, which is typically done on an annual basis, and then for how long. And that's going to determine what your interest is going to be. So for example, let's say you have $500 that you put on deposit for 6% interest annually. And you're going to have it there for just half a year, 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, you put that $500 aside, you're going to have an extra $15 at the end of that time. So you'll have $515, the time value of money. You also have, when you start talking about time value of money, what's called the future value and the present value. Future value is, okay, if I put away money now, what is it going to be in the future? Or if I am looking for a certain value down the road, what do I need to put away now, or the present value? There's various ways to calculate this, all right? You have formulas, you have some tables, which are at the end of chapter 1 in the text, and in our second video, we'll actually go through that, how to use those tables. Financial calculators and then spreadsheet software. I'll also show you how to use various spreadsheets in doing this, okay, in the second video. Now, future value, okay? What that is okay, so if I put away money now, how much will I have down the road? So in other words, if you have $100, Put it away at 6% for a year, you'll have $106 at the end of the year. Compounding is where you get interest on top of your interest. So for example, I put away that $100 for 2 years. I will be getting 6% for the first year, and I'll have $106. For the second year, I'm going to be getting 6% on $106. So I'm going to have a little bit more as far as my value is concerned. In other words, I'm getting interest on top of the interest. That's what compounding is. There's various ways to start calculating this. You have your future value, your original amount, and the interest earned. Okay? That's 1 year. And then if you do it for multiple years, it goes up even more. Now, one of the things I'm going to be doing is showing you how to use the appendix at the end of the chapter to calculate that, and that will be in the second video. I'll also show you how to use a spreadsheet. I could pull up maybe Google Sheets or something along those lines to show you how to calculate that using the formulas that are used there. And let's see, what I'm doing is I'm skipping a few slides, which will actually get to some of those things. Present value is the how much do I need to have now, okay? In other words, what is the current value now? So for example, $1 today is worth more than $1 tomorrow. So if I want $1 for tomorrow, what would be equivalent to that today, depending on interest rates, things like that, maybe 95 cents. So give me 95 cents now or $1 tomorrow, something along those lines. And so we'll go over how to use the sheets and how to use the spreadsheets to do that. You'll also hear about things that are called annuities. That's the present value or a future value of a series of deposits. Okay, so in other words, you're putting away things consistently for like a number of years, things like that. So we'll walk through that in the second video. When you start thinking about your planning, you have your income, and then you're going to think about, okay, so how am I going to be basically disposing of that income? I can spend it on stuff, okay, for like daily living and things like that. I can save some of it, or I might share it. In other words, making donations to charities and things like that. These are some of the things we have to think about. And when we start thinking about the financial planning process, first of all, again, we determine what our current situation is, develop our goals. Think about alternative courses of action. What other ways can we do that? And then evaluate those alternatives. Set our plan, and then periodically review and revise as necessary. So you'll see this process throughout the semester in the class. This exhibit shows all the things that you could possibly be doing, okay, when you start thinking about where it is that you're now, what kind of goals are you setting, both short-term and long-term, and some of the things that you might be doing for those things. One of the other things to be thinking about is your career choices, okay, as far as financial planning is concerned. And so be thinking about where is it that you want to work, what is it that you want to do, what kind of income do you get from that? That will help with your financial planning. In the slides, there are also the summaries then, okay? Our financial decisions, the major elements of financial planning. Think about our SMART goals, the calculation of the time value of money, and the idea of opportunity costs. Think about our financial planning and what it involves. So those are the key points. Go to the next video now where I will actually walk through how do you calculate some of these key things.